I believe what you're referring to is this. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government should become destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish that government and institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. I learned that in middle school. The teacher who taught me that, her name was Linda Ford, and she recently passed away. Mrs. Ford had a habit of making students memorize portions of the Declaration of Independence, which that is the opening of. It's not the Constitution. The line, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish and institute new government, that's called the secession clause. It's not in the Constitution, it's in the Declaration of Independence, which is a declaration of war against Great Britain. Now, if you would like to see what a declaration of war looks like in the United States, that would be a ordinance of secession, which was drafted by every single slave state that took part in the rebellion against the federal government. You know, the American Civil War. Something that man right there won. His wife was a slave owner, by the way, and when she came to visit him in Vicksburg during the siege, she was the only legal slave owner in the state at the time, and she had to be reassured that her enslaved woman, known as Black Jewel, would not be taken away from her. Ulysses S. Grant's wife. So, yeah, you can say stupid bullshit like what you said here and try and defend January 6th, or you can understand and know that the Founding Fathers would have told you to sit down and be quiet like a child, because you are not making the argument that they were making at all. And if you're wondering if you can be charged with insurrection, yeah, that's what the screenshot of the news article that I had behind me was showing. You can be charged with seditious conspiracy. Now, that is not necessarily treason, but treason is also legal. Sedition against federal government leads to insurrection. Like, the dictionary definition of seditious conspiracy is an act which leads to insurrection. So if someone is charged with seditious conspiracy, that meant that they led to an insurrection, which is exactly what January 6th was an insurrection. It was an attempt to rebel against the federal government, something which was pretty handily put down when National Guard units were pulled into federal service and allowed to enter Washington, D.C. Or do you not recall seeing that on live television? Because I watched it all goddamn day long. It's the day I got that paw print tattoo, actually. So another interesting thing here that I think you might want to try and learn just a little bit about. You cannot secede from the Union. It's all fine and dandy that you want to have a group of your best good friends trying to overthrow the government. That's great. I'm sure it's going to go well for you. It's never worked, by the way, at all. Never will. But if you want to do that, that's fine. But I want to encourage you to look up the Supreme Court case. It's called Texas v. White. It is from 1869, and it's essentially the Supreme Court ruling that Texas, the state that I live in, had to repay every single cent of the gold bullion that belonged to the federal government that Texas sold off to pay for its little, armed rebellion. And as a backup to that, in case any other state decided they want to try to do it again, the federal government said, no, it's not in the Constitution. You might want to actually read it, because there were people who tried to say it was there, and they weren't. And what they were talking about is what you're mentioning. The line from the Declaration of Independence, which is, again, a declaration of war. If you quote from that and say, I have a right to secede, you're threatening armed rebellion against the government. something which that man put down not once but twice. That's right. I'm gonna give you a third thing to look up. It's called the Battle of Liberty Place. It took place in New Orleans, Louisiana. There was an armed rebellion against the government of Louisiana because a black Republican was elected, and some white supremacists did not like that, and they used something called the Louisiana Lottery, which I actually have a ticket of. It's across the room over there. It was signed by G.T. Beauregard and Jubal Anderson Early. They were the commissioners of the lottery. The idea was to raise money to have a second rebellion, and they tried. The United States Army shows up. The person put in charge of the expedition by Grant was James Longstreet, the First Corps commander of the Army of Northern Virginia. A Confederate general put down an armed rebellion against the government. So you're literally wrong, start to finish, for your entire comment. I don't know what to tell you other than to try and counter me, but you're not, because I can absolutely quote Confederate resources that will back me up. Have a good day. Try and learn the difference between the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, I guess. I did in middle school.